What is the biggest threat sitting on your dinner plate right now? You might think it is inflation making your grocery bills skyrocket, or perhaps you are worried about radiation from the waters of Japan. But there is a silent, invisible killer that is far more dangerous. It is hidden inside that bag of frozen shrimp you just bought on sale at the supermarket. It is a cocktail of banned antibiotics and chemical residues, and it is the real reason why a multi-billion-dollar trade deal just collapsed. Last month, Beijing made headlines by banning seafood from Japan. This created a $500 million vacuum in the market. It was a geopolitical earthquake that shook the foundations of the global seafood trade. Japan, a nation synonymous with premium seafood, was suddenly locked out of its biggest customers' ports. Millions of dollars worth of scallops, tuna, and sea cucumbers were left stranded. For competing nations, this looked like the opportunity of a lifetime. And no country was more eager to seize this moment than India. Indian exporters started popping champagne bottles. They believed their moment had finally arrived. They thought they could simply step in and take over Japan's market share. They envisioned fleets of cargo ships leaving Chennai and Mumbai, bound for Shanghai and Shenzhen. But they were wrong. China slammed the door in India's face, and the United States is quietly rejecting shipment after shipment at the border. Why? This is not just about politics or tariffs. This is about biology. It is about a hygiene crisis that is spiraling out of control. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to expose the dirty reality of the global seafood trade. I will show you why the shrimp in your freezer might be cheaper than a cup of coffee, and why that low price tag could cost you your health. Welcome to the toxic trade trap, the rejection reality. Let's look at the numbers, because they tell a brutal story. Before the ban, Japan exported nearly $600 million worth of seafood to China every year. We are not talking about fish sticks or imitation crab meat here. We are talking about the highest echelon of seafood. We are talking about Hokkaido scallops, famous for their sweetness and texture. We are talking about bluefin tuna, the king of sushi, where a single fish can sell for thousands of dollars. We are talking about sea cucumbers and abalone, delicacies that are prized in Chinese banquets. When China cited radiation fears to ban Japanese products, the global supply chain went into shock. Suddenly, there was a massive hole in the world's second-largest seafood market. Restaurants in Beijing and Shanghai were scrambling for suppliers. Supermarket shelves were emptying out. Indian exporters saw dollar signs. They believed they had found the perfect alternative market. After all, India has a coastline stretching over 7,000 kilometers. It sits in the warm, nutrient-rich waters of the Indian Ocean and the Bay of Bengal. They are already one of the largest shrimp producers in the world, and they are desperate for a win, especially because the United States has been tightening the screws on Indian imports with aggressive anti-dumping duties. For years, the U.S. market has been the golden goose for Indian shrimp farmers, but the Trump administration and subsequent policies have accused India of dumping cheap, subsidized shrimp into the American market, hurting local shrimpers in the Gulf of Mexico. Tariffs have risen. Scrutiny has increased. So, India looked at China and saw a lifeline. They thought they could simply swap Japanese sashimi for Indian shrimp. They thought volume could replace value. But the Chinese market reacted with a cold shoulder. Orders were cancelled. Shipments were turned away at the ports. The Indian seafood industry was left in shock. They couldn't understand why China would reject their product when there was such a shortage. But they should not have been surprised. You simply cannot replace a Ferrari with a budget scooter. Japan sells luxury. India sells a commodity. Japan sells freshness and prestige. India sells volume and frozen blocks of ice. Japanese seafood is handled with an almost religious reverence. Fish are killed using the hygiene method to preserve the meat quality. They are flown overnight to markets around the world. Indian shrimp, on the other hand, is a mass-produced industrial product. It is grown in ponds, harvested by the ton, and frozen for months. But the problem goes much deeper than just branding or culinary preference. The Chinese customs authorities found something disturbing in the shipments coming from India. They didn't just find smaller shrimp or less tasty fish. They found evidence that the product was not just low quality, it was potentially unsafe. the toxic deep dive. To understand why this is happening, we have to peel back the curtain on the Indian aquaculture industry. We have to look at how this shrimp is actually grown. In India, the shrimp industry is not dominated by massive, high-tech corporations with pristine laboratories. 70% of the production comes from small, independent farmers. These are families trying to survive on thin margins in rural villages. They do not have the capital to invest in advanced water treatment systems. They do not have the money for biosecurity protocols. They dig ponds in the earth, fill them with brackish water, and stock them with shrimp larvae. So, what happens when you crowd thousands of shrimp into a small, dirty pond? It is the same thing that happens in any overcrowded, unsanitary condition. Disease spreads like wildfire. The water becomes a breeding ground for bacteria and viruses, white spot syndrome virus, EHP, vibriosis. These are the nightmares of every shrimp farmer. If the shrimp die, the farmer goes bankrupt. He loses his investment, his livelihood, and often falls into debt sharks. So, out of desperation, many farmers turn to the only weapon they have: antibiotics. They pour chemicals into the water to keep the shrimp alive just long enough to harvest. They treat the ponds like a hospital ward. This is where the nightmare begins for the consumer. The FDA has explicit bans on certain substances. Two of the most dangerous are nitrofurans and chloramphenicol. These are not just medicines. These are powerful, broad-spectrum antibiotics that were once used in humans but are now largely restricted due to their severe side effects. They are known carcinogens. That means they are linked to cancer. They are linked to aplastic anemia in humans, a condition where your bone marrow stops producing enough new blood cells. It can be fatal. That is why they are banned in food production in the United States, Europe, and China. There is no safe level for these chemicals in your food. Zero tolerance. But when inspectors test shipments of Indian shrimp, guess what they keep finding? Traces of these exact chemicals. In 2024 alone, the FDA refused multiple entry lines of Indian shrimp. They cited the presence of veterinary drug residues. Think about that for a second. This food is being rejected at the border not because it tastes bad, but because it is literally too toxic to sell. But here is the terrifying part: inspection rates are low. The FDA only physically inspects a tiny fraction of the seafood entering the United States. Some estimates say less than 2%. So, for every shipment they catch, how many slip through? How many bags of antibiotic-laced shrimp end up in the freezer aisle of your local grocery store? How many end up in the all-you-can-eat shrimp buffet at your favorite chain restaurant? This is why the price is so low. You are not paying for the cost of clean farming. You are paying for the cost of cutting corners. You are paying for a system that relies on chemical shortcuts instead of hygiene. And it is not just the farming that is the problem, it is the logistics. The journey from the farm to the port is fraught with danger. India's cold chain infrastructure is notoriously weak. From the moment the shrimp is harvested to the moment it reaches the port, it is a race against time. In the scorching tropical heat, without reliable refrigeration, spoilage happens fast. Trucks break down, power goes out, ice melts. Industry data suggests that up to 35% of the product is damaged or spoiled before it even leaves the country. To hide this spoilage, sometimes preservatives are used heavily. Sodium tripolyphosphate is used to make the shrimp absorb water, increasing their weight and making them look plump. So you are paying for water and you are eating preservatives. Sometimes, more nefarious chemicals are used to mask the smell of rot. This is the reality behind the imported label. It is a supply chain that prioritizes volume over safety. It is a system built on the backs of desperate farmers and fueled by chemical dependency. And now, major buyers like China are waking up to this reality. They realized that replacing Japanese seafood with Indian seafood was trading a political risk for a biological hazard. They decided that no amount of political posturing was worth poisoning their population. So, who did they turn to instead? If Japan is out and India is rejected, who fills the void? The quality shift and the winner. While India was being rejected, another country stepped into the spotlight: A country that you might not immediately associate with Asian seafood markets. Spain. Yes, Spain. Recently, China approved the import of Spanish-farmed aquatic products. This includes the crown jewel of the ocean, Atlantic bluefin tuna. Why Spain? Why fly fish all the way from Europe when Asia is right next door? Because Spain represents the opposite of the industrial shrimp model. Spain has positioned itself as a superpower of quality and sustainability. Let's look at their method, known as almadraba. This is not industrial trawling. This is not factory farming. This is an ancient technique used off the coast of southern Spain, in places like Cadiz. It is a system of trap nets that has been used for thousands of years, dating back to the Phoenicians. It is sustainable, it is selective, and most importantly, it is clean. The nets intercept the tuna as they migrate from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean to spawn. The fishermen select only the largest, mature fish. The rest are released. This ensures the survival of the species, but it also ensures the quality of the meat. The tuna caught this way are prize specimens. They are known for their incredible texture, their rich fat content, and their deep red color. They are handled with extreme care. Each fish is processed immediately to maintain its value for the sashimi market. They use advanced flash freezing technology on the boats to lock in the freshness at -60 degrees Celsius. This is the standard required for high-end sushi. Furthermore, as a member of the European Union, Spain operates under some of the strictest food safety regulations in the world. The EU does not mess around with food safety. Traceability is mandatory. Every fish can be tracked back to its source. You know where it was caught, when it was caught, and who caught it. The cold chain logistics are state-of-the-art. From the boat to the plane to the plate, the temperature is monitored constantly. When China buys from Spain, they are buying peace of mind. They know that the product does not contain banned antibiotics. They know it is free from heavy metals. They know it has been stored at the correct temperature. This shift tells us something very important about the global economy in 2025. We are seeing a quality iron curtain descend. The world is splitting into two distinct food zones. On one side, you have countries that adhere to high standards of hygiene and sustainability. These are the high-trust zones. Europe, North America, parts of East Asia. On the other side, you have countries that are stuck in the old model of quantity over quality, the low-trust zones. And the market is voting with its wallet. Consumers in China, just like consumers in America, are becoming scared. They have seen too many food scandals. They are willing to pay a premium for safety. They are willing to pay more for a product that they know won't make them sick. The era of blind global trade is ending. Countries can no longer hide their poor hygiene standards behind low prices. Cheap is no longer enough. In fact, cheap is now a warning label. Cheap means corners were cut. Cheap means antibiotics were used. Cheap means risk. Part 5. Conclusion and your choice. So, what does this mean for you? Watching this from your home in America or Canada, you might think, I don't live in China, why should I care? You should care because the global market is interconnected. When China rejects Indian shrimp, where do you think that shrimp goes? It doesn't just disappear. It gets discounted. It gets dumped on other markets. It might end up in your local grocery store, labeled as a manager's special. The trade war between China and Japan might seem distant, but the toxic trade trap is right there in your local supermarket aisle. When you see a bag of shrimp selling for $5, you need to ask yourself why. You need to ask yourself what had to happen for that price to be possible. Is it worth saving a few dollars if it means exposing your family to banned chemicals? Is it worth the risk of consuming antibiotic residues that could make you resistant to medicine when you really need it? Is it worth supporting an industry that destroys the environment and exploits farmers? The failure of India to capture the Chinese market is a warning bell for all of us. It proves that food safety is the new currency of global trade. It proves that quality is the ultimate competitive advantage. So, here is my advice to you. Empower yourself with knowledge. Start reading the labels. Flip that bag over and look at the country of origin. If it says farm-raised from a country with a history of safety violations, think twice. Look for the words wild caught. Wild caught means the shrimp lived in the ocean, eating a natural diet, not in a chemical soup. Look for North American seafood, Gulf shrimp from the USA, cold water shrimp from Canada, Alaskan salmon. These fisheries are strictly regulated, they are sustainable, and they support your local economy. Yes, it will cost you 20 or 30% more. I know budgets are tight. I know inflation is hurting everyone. But think of it as an investment in your health. Think of it as an insurance policy against the toxic shortcuts of the industrial food chain. You pay for car insurance. You pay for home insurance. Why wouldn't you pay a little extra to ensure the food you put in your body is safe? Do not let your dinner table become a dumping ground for the world's rejected seafood. Vote with your wallet. Demand transparency. And demand quality. I want to hear from you in the comments below. This is a conversation we need to have. When you buy seafood, do you check the country of origin? Do you trust the imported farm-raised shrimp? Or do you stick to wild-caught options? Have you ever noticed a difference in taste or quality? Let me know your thoughts. And if you want to know exactly how to navigate the confusing labels at the seafood counter, make sure you watch our next video. We are going to rank the top supermarket chains based on their seafood safety standards. We will tell you who is testing their products and who is just looking for the lowest bidder. You do not want to miss that. It could change the way you shop forever. Stay safe, stay informed, and eat wisely. See you in the next video.